Well, I see that more people have joined here, so I just want to do a little quick introduction and just thank everyone for joining us today. I see that there's people from the Philippines, there's Chicago, I see Texas, and for everyone that just joined, if you don't mind putting in your the city that you're dialing in from in the chat, it'd be cool to see how expanded we are now. Um, I also just want to thank you, Scott, for agreeing to do this. For everyone that's here, Scott, you and we spoke on a Zoom call. I think it was probably a month ago, and it was the first time that we ever spoke on a Zoom call. And I, it felt like we've always known each other. It felt like such a natural brotherhood. So, so I just want to thank you for being interested in doing this. And I've been looking at your work for so long now, and I've just been enamored by all that you do. And I think I've told you that the last time that we spoke that your attention to craft and your dedication and your discipline in the realm of graphic design, I think is exhilarating, and it feels rare, even though there's a lot of people in the world that are doing amazing things. I think the fact that you're, diving into the deep end and subjecting yourself to so much analog and so many, what I'm imagining, like long nights and early mornings to produce something that is gonna, that I know is gonna carry like heart and soul is really, really inspiring. So I hope that everyone that's here is able to take away something from our conversation today. The goal of this event today is not to have a formal presentation. It's not, we don't have any slides to share. It's really just a casual conversation amongst designers. And for everyone that's here, you're welcome to turn your cameras on and unmute yourself and ask questions.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as interruption, so feel free to just unmute and talk over this if you have to.
Well, Christian, I got to tell you, thank you. That's an amazing introduction. And honestly, like how long you and I talked for probably an hour, hour and a half, like whatever it was. And like I told you, I just hung up and I was like, holy shit, like that was amazing. And I got to tell you, Barry, you'll get a kick out of this. We can thank Mr. Valcenti for this whole assemblage here because he's the one. He's like, you got to get a hold of Christian. You got to, So anyway,
Of course.
here we are. So anyway, yeah. But um, I mean, for the audience out there, please, chime in anytime, ask whatever you want. Like Christian said, when we decided to do this, we didn't want to have any pressure. Or nobody's measuring up, especially me. And I mean, it's just one of those things. We just want to hang out. But to answer your question, Christian, yeah, I'm in like the final production aspect of the magazine. And so now like it's been done and now I'm going back and I'm looking at things and I'm like, maybe I'll rebuild this because all the pages they are, analog. They're all, base analog. There are some things like, for example, with Ed Fella, I'm not going to mess around with his original pieces, of course. So, I, his spreads were physically built. And then, you have to composite sometimes. So that's how that's been going. But it's starting to I'll be honest with everybody, it's starting to wear me out because like I for the last month or so I've been getting up at like 2:30, 3 o'clock and getting back to it. I'm like super bummed, but what are you
So,
gonna do?
so I just want to mention that we named this event Whiskey and Tea, and Barry and I have our tea here. So, is there a whiskey that you'd like to hold up to the camera?
There is.
Okay,
This
and
is my Blanton's.
and here's our tea.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I love it.
Um, so I have a question. Can you tell us what was that moment in your mind that made you want to start walk? What was happening on that day?
Well, there are a lot of things that kind of led up to it. I'll just cut to the chase. I was running an agency for about 7 years, and I did a lot of tech. I worked on, and I think I told you this, Christian, I worked on worldwide campaigns for Intel. And, that's not this kind of work, but I've always appreciated everything. I try not to be a very judgmental person, but, some stuff you like, sometimes you don't, whatever. But Intel is one of our bigger clients. I did a lot of tech stuff. I did Kershaw Knives. I don't know. There was a bunch of different clients, but running an agency is a whole different um, mindset than it is, getting up and doing your own thing or whatever. So anyway, long story short, I, I as much as I hated to part with the agency, my partner and owner, we just decided, hey, like it's just time to do something different. And prior to that, I was telling my wife, Michelle, I'm like, gosh, I just had this wild itch. Like, I want to get back to, this stuff behind me because you can't do both. Like, I just don't. I mean, I think everybody out there realizes, and I know Barry and you, Christian, like, you just can't do it all. And, parts of me kind of were suffering. Like, I've always been kind of charging forward. And I'm not like a typical creative director. I don't even really like that term. I mean, like, who am I? But I'm definitely a hands-on person. I like to get in the room with my team and rap about stuff. I mean, I don't need to have control. I don't, I mean, yes, you need to have leadership, but anyway, so the daily agency stuff kind of was very interesting and very accountable and really great for that 7 years and some awesome work. I really felt like it was just time for me to, dig back into my soul and do some of the work that I had done like in the late 80s and the 90s, stuff that I was just like in my head, I'm like, well, I hope this works. you know? And now that we're seasoned, whatever that means. When I left the agency, I went back to my freelance practice and stuff. And my good friend Mark Moran, who is a professor at Portland State University, he's the one. I will tell you the truth about this whole thing. He's the one. He's like, "You think you'll ever do another magazine?" And I'm like, "Not going to happen." Because since I left Raygun and all that, people always had asked me to do these things, and it's just a hard thing to do. I mean, it is really. I mean, it's like, maybe excuse the term here, but it's like carrying a baby around for 9 months. Like, you are sweating it out.
Mhm.
And I probably should take that back because I watched my wife carry our two sons, and that's not comparable. But anyway, I okay. So I mean, not to lose people. I don't mean to digress, but so the agency was great, but then I really wanted to get back to my roots. And then when Mark was asking me about the magazine, I was like, yeah, no. And then 3 months after that, I really started thinking about it because, like we all do, like all of you that are out there, thank you for joining, by the way. You ask yourself these questions like, how happy am I? Like, what should I be doing? And blah, 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 whatever. And this is, the stuff you see behind me is what makes me happy. I like making waves. I mean, I like, as much as I don't want to wake up at 3 o'clock, I like getting up and kicking shit around. So that's kind of where it came from. And so the magazine really started about a year and a half ago,
Mhm.
and then really hard for like the last 10 months. So out of nowhere, well, to Barry's sake, the first thing, and this is the God's honest truth, the first thing I did was get a hold of him. And because I thought to myself, what goes on the page? I mean, you have to read the story. Oh, you don't have to, but, and I thought to myself, who on this planet would know the best thing? Who's going to have the best thing for me to take a crack at. And sure enough, I asked Barry, and he very kindly talked to me about these odds and ends, and then um, we got a font together, and that, honestly, Barry, that really made me think, okay, wow, this I need to do this font justice, and that meant not being lazy, not that I am, but and really reinventing this page. Like, he's going to be pissed at me if he sees this font on the page and it's just some bullshit haphazard, you know, galleys in line or whatever the thing is, and I'm like, I'm not, I wouldn't do that anyway. But so for all of you out there, this gentleman sitting next to Christian, you need to take a bow, because this guy, he has shaped graphic design and font design and all kinds of modern aesthetics, because
It's one to know one.
I appreciate that, but I really mean that for you folks out there. Take a good look at him. And anyway, so yes, so I did start with Barry's font, and then right in line with a font I had done a long time ago, actually for Neville Brody, and I did two for him. The second one he took for Fuse, and this one, which was called B font, I've always kept and used it by myself. Like we were just saying, Barry, it was just tucked away. I'm like, who cares? Well, when I was digging deep into the soul here, I spelt, once I landed on the name on Walk, I spelt it out, and I was like, that's it. Right there. I mean, and I remember when I first posted some stuff about the cover, I gotta laugh, but people were like, it's kind of fat, isn't it? And then another gentleman was like, hey, this kerning got away from you, from the L and the K or whatever. And I'm like, the fuck is what? Like, what? Anyway, but you know what? Hey, again, who am I? Like, you notice what you notice, and whatever. And for everybody out there, that font was done in Fontographer, and Barry knows way more than I do about these things. But and so I never polished the kerning or the M heights or any of that stuff. I thought to myself, I want to type this in, and like I said, it was for Brody anyway, and we were experimenting with Fuse, and I just left it all alone. So when you type it in, the kerning's totally off, and it's meant to be that way. It was meant to be a font from me. So when I type out Walk, that's what it looks like.
Hmm. And there's so
And
much about your the little teasers that you've been sharing that have this very strong imprint of the human hand. And I imagine that there is this precious nature to the attention to detail that you're putting onto things, but then there also seems to be a kind of recklessness as well, which is kind of in line with the story that you shared, which is this is what it looks like and this is how it's going to be. So how do you tend to balance like the that leave it the way it is, and also wanting to have that control to make it how you think it should be? Does that come up?
yeah, that it does. So as all of you out there know, because I don't want to isolate the audience here, but we all try to make decisions and you know struggle to land on one thing. And if you're not struggling, something's wrong. I've always felt like if I don't struggle to get somewhere, then the path I'm walking on is not even worth it. But let me put it this way, Christian, that's a great question. So say you want to redo your living room, right? And you take all the furniture out, you repaint it, and you have these fantasies of like, oh, the desk is going here, the couch is going here, the chair's going here, whatever. And it can be kind of a it makes you anxious, right? So you are in your living room, and you're putting furniture in there, and you're fine tuning everything, and then you're standing there at the doorway, and you're like, everything's perfect. Even though there was some anxiety in getting there, right? Well, there's something about that perfection that's just quite not, it's just not right. You know what I mean? Like, this might not be the best analogy, but what happened to the beautiful moments where maybe the chair really doesn't belong over there next to the window, but the view is incredible. And, the couch is over here and it unbalances the room, but you walk out of that doorway and you'd rather throw your shit in the couch anyway. So, you leave things because it naturally works. You know what I mean? It humbles the situation of like, oh, it's got to be perfect. The way that I have always worked was finding a balance of letting things be, you know. Um I you know, I don't really believe in fine tuning a page per se of like everything needs to be in its order or whatever. Um I'm a huge believer in taking myself out of the equation and letting the material on the page like guide me to where it wants to sit. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So there's I don't necessarily, I wouldn't really say that there's chaos as much as it is me trying to listen, you know, like, like there's been a couple, or not a couple, but a lot of instances where, I get objects on the page and you, you want to, like, your head goes, oh, well, we'll center this, and, the weight of this makes you want to do that or whatever. And so, we all do that, right? Well, when it's all said and done, it's just too expected,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm not listening to the parts on the page. You know what I mean? It's like a group of musicians. Like, somebody's playing louder, and maybe there's, some significance to another member somewhere or somehow. You know what I'm saying? So, um, and going back to Barry's font, there's been a handful of times that I laid titles out, and I really wanted to do this, but frankly, your characters, Barry, didn't allow me. So I say, allow me to do that. Like, they were like, they became too obvious, you know, for lack of a better word. Like, I was calling all the attention to the characters. Like, oh, the only great thing on the page are these couple, is this word or these couple letters, and I'm like, no, that's not really fair. You know what I mean? I don't want a page to stand out just because, oh, the font looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? You know, I want there to be a balance, because so, like, the font looks cool, but all right, what about the other 6 or 7 pieces on the page too? They have value, and so do they get thrown away just because I've rearranged, the font to do this? So, um, I've actually found a really, per page. I wasn't always able to do this, but I found a good balance with the font, in using it in pull quotes and in titles of things. So it did work out. But and then there were sometimes, like, the layout needed me to be accountable. Like, I had a couple, I was using the font for some titles, and I was like, wow, this is really amazing, but the rest of the page is falling short. So, there's a little bit of an antidote here. And so I want to speak to the audience a little bit. So let's just take, for example, you have a project or a flyer, or, I mean, a catalog, or, whatever that you're working on. And I see this 10 times out of 10. And somebody will give you, here's 6 photographs, here's, 6 pages, here's your copy. And, the copywriter gives you pull quotes, right? So I watch people just open InDesign up, get everything organized, and they start laying out the 6 page article. Okay, awesome. That's great. That's great. and you look for the balance, and again, I look for I watch people, and shame on myself, really. I'm not trying to judge, but I watch people try to find that grid in the whole thing. And this part always happens. I'll watch, like, the photo will come in and it's just landed somewhere on the page, and then the copy comes in, and then the title will come in, and I was like, oh wow, like I'm really turned on by how they landed when they pasted it, and then they rearranged the whole thing. That's a problem, because I feel like, if I was teaching a class, like, can you leave it there? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you can't read it, so no, you got to move it. But let's let's look at how it landed. Like, there's some power going on here, of the way things landed on the page, that's unexpected, that has some gravity to it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm really attracted to, is that natural occurrence of, like, how things are, because we all destroy that beautiful moment. You put it down there and you're like, oh fuck, I better put it up here. Oh, the copy needs to be readable here. I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? Okay, so back to the thing. So the regular, brand X is, designing this 6-page thing, and when you're all and there's some masters that do this. I mean, it's all said and done, it looks just incredibly fantastic, and you have, pages. I don't know if they're white, if they have color in them. You have your galleys, and you have, titles and pull quotes, and it's all nice and neat, and it looks, InDesign did a great job. That's the problem I have. That is a severe problem. I'm only I don't want anybody to get mad at me, because, like, I'm just talking about myself. So when I did the magazine, I haven't even used InDesign yet, but I will, because the printer needs those files. So here's, say, if you give me the 6 pages, here's how I look at it. I read the story first. All the years at Raygun, when I would work on a story, I read the copy first, and you work with the copywriter, like, okay, this is too long. Oh, maybe this pull quote would be better because here's the photograph. Like, there's some, like, here we are rearranging the living room again. It's like, well, the couch is too big for there. Let's move it over. Whatever. So before you lay out anything, you need to look at the counterparts. Like, do they help each other? Are they fighting? What's happening? So, like, in Walk, I read the story. Well, I read the story first, and then looked at the counterparts of everything, and then I actually re-interviewed the people who did the stories that I did with them. So I went back and did another interview with them, because I wanted to lay the pages out appropriately. I did not want to take the story and lay it down the way I thought, like, oh, this would be great. That's crazy. So I made the decision to talk to them, like, hey, here's how I'm feeling about your story. How do you feel? And these photos, tell me about these photos, or tell me about this artwork, right? And so once I had that, I started hand building, the mechanicals, paste up spreads for the article. And so I never even touched InDesign. I actually laid it out, and then went to FedEx and used their Konica copy machine, and copied the pages myself, recut them up, and put them in position as a graphic mechanical, like we were taught, right, Barry, in the late 80s or whatever. So all of the pages in this magazine were built that way. And then then once things were set, I had high res photography or scanning or whatever to take those counterparts, and then I would reassemble them. And then, for example, say it was a photo layout from you, Christian, I would use your photos um, back in there. So that gets composited in there. But some of these spreads in a magazine are full blown high res photographs only. Copy the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing. It is just like, you'll see when you open it up. But anyway, back to the story of like how you would traditionally lay out an article or a catalog or whatever. You pull up a chair, you go to InDesign, and you start laying this out. And I got to be careful here. I just feel like it's empty. Like, okay, let's just say all of you out there did that. I'm sure you did a fantastic job. Amazing. But here's my say, if I was, working with you, I would be like, where's your soul? I don't understand. What did you put into this? Well, I laid this out, Scott. I mean, I did the spread. Yeah, okay, I know that. But where are you in the work? And I think that that's important because I also feel like, we all signed up to be image makers or creatives or whatever. And if you're going to lay something out, put some skin in the game. Like maybe you make paper at home, or maybe you have these found ephemera pieces or whatever, and you're like, you know what? Like, I just laid this 6 pages out. I'm going back to my house. I'm going to photograph these things, and I'm going to put them into this article to maybe help it. Maybe there's a juxtaposition of the photograph and a piece of found printed material you found on the street or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of digging a rabbit hole here, but I guess my point is when when I'm looking at a magazine or I'm looking at an article, I really have to decide what I want to bring into it. I mean, like everything from the font, from the background. Like, am I just using the zero background that InDesign gives me? Like, what is that? What? I mean, am I choosing a color? That's a digital thing. I have a problem with that, So like, you'll see when you open the magazine, there's a number of backgrounds that most of them I've built. Some of them I've found and still, put materials next to one another. And people out there, maybe you're thinking, why would you do that? Why go to all that trouble? That's a good question. Well, well, because in this moment, you are the one that is laying this out. Why wouldn't you go to the nth degree to do your best? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where it comes from. So I think in my head, I'm trying to explain, but I also am feeling like maybe I'm losing people. Like maybe I digress too much, but I will go back to one thing. So when I went to art school, I got my degree in advertising, and I was, bored silly. And then I went back and got my degree in fine art. So here's the biggest thing of what I'm trying to say. So if you take anything away from this, all I'm trying to say is that you do some of these things and it helps you see. Like all of my teachers at art school were consistently trying to show me how to see. So and sometimes it's not anybody's fault. Like, you sign up for the Adobe suite and okay, you're in. Well, not necessarily, but you start to lay things out or whatever, but what are you really seeing? And say I'm the one who laid this out, and I'm like, here you go, Barry and Christian, like, here's the article on, on fishing in the Pacific Northwest. And you guys are like, what are you doing? How much is there to see? Like, if I just put everything on the grid in there, and I mean, where's the magic? Where's Scott? Where's the magic? So that's kind of what I'm saying. And that's been a high point of mine, I think, since day one was learning how to see things. You know what I mean? So, and that's all of us. Like my point might not mean shit because there's other things. All of you out there, I know, have your own points of view, for sure, and you should. But I'm just asking maybe to look into some of that and learn to see maybe a little different and maybe add that to your work. You know, my long-winded explanation, Christian.
Do you feel like Walk is a protest project? Are you protesting against this culture of Pinterest and this state where we're sort of chasing trends and sort of just because I think when it comes to graphic design, we know what sells, and there's algorithms that tell us that if a logo looks this way, it'll appeal to this audience and
Mhm.
whatnot. And I think especially now with artificial intelligence making it so easy to create things that look passable, um, what you're describing to me is this. It's kind of like a middle finger to all of that. Is that a correct assessment?
No,
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
no. I think it'd be really selfish if I said yes, it was. Um, Honestly, I've been telling people like I'm putting my money where my mouth is because, like, I've been doing this since the late '80s. Like in '87, maybe late '86, but let's just say '87. I started pasting. Well, in our school, I was pasting things up, but commercially, when I was at Sims Snowboards and Sims Skateboards, whatever, I was pasting things up and I was using the Xerox machine to get things that I wanted, while my counterparts were using like PMT machine, perfect, whatever drawings of things or whatever. And I was like, gosh, I just don't feel like that says very much. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, you're you're at you're at an event or whatever, and this dude comes walking in. He's dressed with the suit and he looks proper and beautiful, and I like that. That's a great look. And then this other cat comes walking in and he's got rips in his jeans and maybe a few tats, bandana, maybe not, and he just got some style. That's a story to me. Well, there's both stories, but which one maybe would you lean to first? You know what I mean? So way back in like in the early '80s, I realized that, and there were no computers. I didn't have a computer. So I was pasting everything up, and then I had an ad manager, and he would come and take the mechanicals out and take them to the uh, the color shop, and then a week later, some of you know this, you'd get a match print back, and there you go. And so I always felt like there was an accountability there. Like some of my um, coworkers were just like get doing mechanicals as quickly and as rigid as they could. I mean, they had a T square and they were lining stuff up, and it always just annoyed me. But I mean, I get it. I was just, for me, the artist in me. So I think that, just way back when, I've always just had this appreciation for the journey, and the materials involved, because I kind of maybe look at it a lot deeper where, like, when we were a ray gun. I mean, don't you think every issue was like a compliment, like a gift, like, oh, whoa, I'm going to do these, 98 or 96 pages or whatever it was. That's amazing. Like that's a pretty big accountability. And Marvin and the rest of the staff just waited for us to hand it in. That's a pretty big deal. I never took that lightly, and so all of that carried over. I think, as an artist, as a graphic designer, whatever, now, to where if somebody asks me to do something, I don't care if it's for free. Like I'll stay up all week. Here you go, because I believe in all of it, and I do a lot of that. People will ask me for certain things, and I'm like, yeah, no, don't worry about it, and whatever. So that's how the magazine is too. I just feel like, well, I'm ready for it to be at the printer, but I think it's just me. It's like me driving myself. I feel very, very accountable to doing it, and because people are going to see it, they're going to be like, what is he talking about? And I don't want. I mean, you can question it, sure. I mean, hey, what I do is from me. I mean, it may not suit everybody. I'm sure it won't suit everybody. But I will tell you, like when you open it up, you've never seen anything like it before. I mean, like nothing. And so I digress. So to answer your question, Christian, I would love to tell you it's like, here you go, fuck you. It's not though. And it is an adverse reaction. I'll be honest about my answer. It's an adverse to reaction to the last, 8, 10 years, whatever it is, of social media and the decline of our advertising community, of taking the easy way out and doing shit that for this little fucking square that like now nobody even cares about. It's insane to me.
Mhm.
So I thought to myself, I mean, I don't like, here I am talking to all of you. I don't want to rant or anything, but like I thought to myself, this is crazy. I don't feel this way. I don't, there's, let's just say all of you out there don't feel that way either. But that's how it is. And, you know, we all do work that just shows up in a 2.5 by 2.5 square, or whatever the holy shit it is. And like nobody cares about it anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure, I don't know any of you out there. Actually, some of you, I'm sure I do, but like you deserve to go through this experience and have it be seen appropriately. You know what I mean? Like we all get up, struggle, do shit, whatever. And it's like, I've seen stuff, by the hundreds just get handed in and it goes out on social media. Probably a lot of it never to be seen. Just so anyway, so to answer your question, Christian, and this is all in the time of me leaving the agency. I'm like, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to explore the things that I really appreciate. And I am going to align myself with people that can contribute to this vision.
Mhm.
For example, like Ed Fella, and oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell you the conversations we had. And Ed is 88. So 88, think about that. Well, he's got 6 glorious pages in this magazine. And so here's how I flipped it on him. He directed me. And he didn't want to do that at all. So I said, okay, well, and this is after a month and a half of talking and texting and farting around, and really me kind of taking a bow. I'm like, I mean, it's Ed Fella. Come on, looking at his stuff, looking at the process, talking to his daughter. So I said, Ed, I'll give you a hand. So I laid out suggestively what I thought he was going to tear apart, but we had to start somewhere. So I laid out the 6 pages by hand and sent them to him. And he was like, it's fucking perfect. He's like, I'm not changing a thing. And I was like, oh man. I'm like, Ed, no. I'm like, I'll tell you what, live with it for a week, tear it apart. Let's do whatever. I'm like, it's totally up to you. Anyway, we did make a few changes, me pushing him, but his work, as some of you out there know, is all by hand. I mean, this guy, I mean, it was a huge honor for me. And I've been friends with him as long as I think been friends with you, Barry, way back when design was a boom, so to speak, or whatever. And like, so this experience of, so this is what I was after, right? Like leaving the agency. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, but leaving the agency and finding myself and what makes me tick and keeping my mouth shut. And as this social stuff goes by, and I'm in and out of agencies, and I'm watching people make stuff, and I'm just like, you know, frustrated. Like, how can you walk away? Anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to put this out there only to satisfy like where my head was at. And then I saw it coming together, and I was like, oh, okay, whoa, like this could be a thing. And so now here comes another benchmark in design history, whatever you want to say. So I'm excited about it, and it kind of is a middle finger, but it wasn't meant to be. It was really meant to really not even to be an anti. It's not meant to be anything. It was me being true to what was out there. Does that make sense? I
So,
mean, I'm long-winded in answering these things. I'm definitely passionate about it. You know, if it's one of those things where if somebody, uh, if somebody is going to see my work or whatever, or I'm going to stand tall enough to like present some things, it's got to be accountable. I mean, you can hate it. There'll probably be people that hate the whole magazine. Whatever. That's fine. But I mean, it's just like the people that were, telling me, well, the kerning's off, and like, looks like the K got away or whatever. Like, okay, okay. I'm no better than anybody else out there. So the only difference between me and someone else, well, is the fact that like I just don't give up. You know what I mean? Like you know, since art school, even out of high school, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to art school. you know, and my parents were super supportive, and people were always like, oh man, starving artist, because I'm a New Yorker. So like, how are you going to get a job? And like, I don't know, there's no retirement in that. And I'm like, no, I don't care. My soul was telling me something else. Right. So that's kind of where it comes from. And that is the big difference from me. And even when I'm at agencies or I'm working on something, like I'm the guy with the key, locking and setting the alarm, just because like I believe in it. So like, you come back the next day, there's something rewarding about that for me. Always, being able to take something to the next level or whatever, not for selfish reasons, but because we're image makers, right? That's how it should be.
Yeah. And if anyone on the online has a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat or just unmute yourself. Um, I know I have a follow-up question. Is there anything you want to add, Barry?
yeah, I think it's just, wonderful that you decided to respond to the state of things these days. Uh, I feel like we've come to similar conclusions in the past few years. Like,
Yeah.
social media has shown us what it can do for us, and what it wants to do to us. And now it's time for us to decide how we want to manage social media and where we want to be, where we
Yeah.
want to make our lives.
I
Because we're still in the flesh.
Yeah, that's a great. I love that, Barry. I mean, one of the things that you really got my back up when you said was like what it's done to us. I sit in, like probably a lot of you out there do. I sit in these huge meetings with clients that, there's people in there that are $250 an hour. So if you add everybody up, you got a $10,000 meeting going on. And they're trying to figure out how to get more likes on a social platform. Like what? I mean, okay, I understand that. And that's a real thing. But like what, so everybody knows what Barry is saying because he and we're coming from the same cloth here. Is that it has taken something from us, well, from all of you. But like if you started in the 80s or whatever, and you went through these certain roles, you know, and I'm not saying we're better or worse, but like we did stand by and while things got taken away. So particles from the meetings there was less and less and less and less of what someone like myself or any of you or Barry out there could contribute because they're like, oh yeah, AI will do it, or it's just going on social, so nobody cares. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and people's attention spans. And
Yeah.
like, I think something we both love in design is putting treasures, deep inside the work for people to discover, on the 400th perusing.
I know.
And it's just like that doesn't serve capitalism.
Nope. Or
And I think really the it is the answer to why a lot of the work, I don't know, has less going on in it than it could. Is the
yeah,
answer really something about the way capitalism has evolved?
yeah. Let's cut it all out. We don't need any more treasures. We don't need the Scott and Berries. We'll just do it. Here you go. I mean,
Yeah, I don't believe them. I don't believe them.
you shouldn't believe them.
What I mean, the needs that they say they have are not, they're just not adequate. They're selling themselves and all of us short with those priorities.
For sure. There's a little thing out there for everybody. Some of you will know this, some of you may not. But a lot of these decisions that Barry's talking about, or the things we're talking about right now, uh, here's a little secret. There's this thing called return on ad spend. Okay. Yeah, look at Barry almost fell out of his chair. So anyway, all the work that we all do is gauged by that. So like why would you spend more than 15 minutes doing a piece for Instagram or Facebook or whatever, because it's going to be measured by the return on ad spend. So in other words, brands are going to look at that and go, oh, here's this cool little thing with the coffee and then there's beans next to it, that got 55,000 likes. The fuck does that mean? Like how many of that here let me introduce a word in there. Where's the conversion? How many of those 55,000 people went out and actually bought the coffee? How about none?
Hmm.
Because those are not, that's an intermediate. Your lifestyle is not really going to be changed at the moment. I mean, it could be. Why, what you're perusing through Instagram. You might see something, maybe you do see the coffee and you think, wow, okay, that looks cool. Maybe I'll try that. But as like we were talking about before, because so many of these nuances have been taken away, you just don't trust it anymore. It's not like, for example, like I absolutely just loved Martha Stewart's magazines because they were so high quality. And I would go through them like super slow in slow motion because there was some craft in there. And there were people that knew what they were talking about and amazing photographers shooting the food or whatever. And I'm like, shit, like I'm making that. Like I'm doing that. You know what I mean? So let's leave the realm of walk and my history or whatever bullshit I'm involved in. Let's just take like the common denominator of something that's done well. And these aren't like punk rock people. These are just like, let's just say, for example, regular folks, buttoned up, whatever. But um, that magazine that she did, phenomenal, just phenomenal. And that is a really great piece to look at, to stop and think like, does it really matter? You damn right it does. And so the return, now think about this for a minute. I'll interject myself here. Say all that came across on social, you wouldn't even notice that. But when you had the magazine and there it is right in the aisle, so my little grubby fingers can put it in my basket and get it. They had my attention permanently.
And then you have it in your house, and like
And
thousands of people have it in their house, and it's like
yep,
on their coffee table, and it's got a cool cover, and there's something they liked in there, some recipe they want to make, or
yep. Oh,
you
yeah,
know something they want is in those pages, and they have this vague recollection, and
yep,
they end up hoarding it in a
yeah,
big box with all the other magazines they love that much, while uh, the social posts are just chugging away, burning server time somewhere.
yep, yep. Barry, I definitely take a bow. You are 1 trillion% correct. I and there's like this emotional connection to the magazine. I know all of you have emotional connections. It could be to the clothes, your shoes, whatever treasures are yours. That's what this is all about. You know what I mean? Like, if you think that I'm crazy or whatever, or like Scott's just fucking in too deep, okay, fine, sure. But take a look at yourself and what you actually love. And how does that make you feel? Like maybe you love making cookies or whatever, whatever. How is that moving you? How does that make you feel? That's kind of the antithesis of turning on a program and expecting it to do this job that supposedly you're going to hand in and hopefully 2 years from now get a raise on. How does that work? That doesn't even work. I'm ranting, but my point is the love you have for the baking or whatever it may be. Maybe it's your clothes, maybe it's, knitting, or maybe you hanging out with your family, whatever. Maybe it's walking your dog. Like that's special. So all I'm saying is maybe round up some of those feelings and decide like, okay, if I was going to lay out, a magazine, or maybe I'm going to do an ad for, you know, whatever, a cupcake or something. What what does it look like? Like, I think and here we are, we're back to learning how to see. I think that when you take a good look inside of yourself, honestly, like, don't fuck around with your answer, and you find out what moves you, whatever it may be, that's what you need to hold on to. And that's what Barry's talking about with the magazine. Super funny thing. I I did hold on to those magazines, and my wife would be like, "You're not looking at these." She goes, "I'm going to put these in the recycling." I'm like, "Okay, fine, fine." And I know, like, I have to regulate myself. I'm like, "All right, she's right. I'm not going to look at them again." But like, there's this heartstring, like right here, it's getting pulled out like a piece of gum, like. And so what happens? I go out to the recycling, and there they are. They're sitting on the top on this box or whatever, and I'm like, fuck. I
And you
pick them out of the thing, and what, Barry?
and you save them.
I, and I take them back in, and she's like, "What are you?" And, like, this is like 2 weeks later. She's like, "Oh, I saw the magazine, you blah blah blah." I'm like, "I know, I know." I'm like, "I just can't let go of it yet." And that's just the truth. That's just who I am. You know what I mean? And now I think the other one she has right now is Real Simple, is her magazine now. And yesterday I was putting some cardboard in there, which is another thing. And there were a couple issues of that Real Simple, and I'm like, oh, but I left them in there. I'm like, Scott, you got too much stuff happening. Leave it. But anyway, So there you go. Like that's what it should be. That's what it should be, you know. And so when you see like me, yammering on about walk or whatever, it's not really doing much justice. Like you got to hold it. Plus, I will admit, it's 9 by 12. It's oversized. So when you hold this thing, it takes charge. You're going to sit down. I mean, it's here.
I was gonna ask, is there any little preview or anything that you can share with us? Or
Regarding what?
just like the, I don't know, like a sample spread, or maybe tease us with some of the names that are featured, or just whatever.
Well, I have this designer's mock-up, and it's not appropriate. Like this is a couple months old, but again, like yeah, it's not even. I can't even hang on to it, because it's not bound.
I
It's
see it's
just
got printing on it in there.
Oh, look at that.
Huh?
Cool.
here. I will show you this. So at this, so here's an article that I did with the ever legendary Paul Sitch, and
Wow.
so there's just a little bit of a teaser. But anyway, it's an article about accountability indirectly.
Hmm.
Um, and basically, he and I swapped material, and then we had 3 or 4 different phone conversations, and all the unedited stuff that we thought was appropriate is the article. So it's really wild,
Okay.
and like
Hmm.
that to me was a story and visual design pushed to like the nth degree. Like it's way more than I thought it would ever be. And Paul just, he just had carte blanche, like, you know. So I'm really excited about that story.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
as you were building your collection of people that you wanted to feature, how were you making those decisions? What kind of voices did you wanna include?
um, so was one of the first articles I did was with this photographer. His name is Mark McInnes, and he lives in the Pacific Northwest here, and he has this outstanding, like, coastal photography of breaks. They don't. They're so for people who don't know, they're surf breaks. But the Pacific Northwest is ice cold, and so you need a 4 or 5 millimeter wetsuit to get in the water or whatever. But he wrote an article for me. He and I went back and forth for a long time, probably 4 or 5 months. And he wrote an article for me on the actual grit that it takes, number one, to get there, and the grit that it took for him to make a major life decision and change course. The story's insane. Anyway, the original title was, the breaks of, or it was something about like Oregon breaks you'll never touch, because the we have actually digital and film photography in here. We started out with the film, which was something that I wanted to pass the emotion forward, because when Mark and I were looking at the selects for the coastal shots, some of the stuff was like, oh my gosh, like it was amazing. So, and then we just didn't have enough film, and then we incorporated some digital in there. But part of me was like, I will admit this, Christian. Part of me wanted to do the article that said "fuck you" to everybody. Like, I'm not telling you where this is, whatever. You're never gonna find it or whatever. But this is the beauty, because like, why would you fucking give it? Why give everything away? And there is a little bit of that in there. I'm not giving you the locations, but it goes right along there. So there's a reason for that. And when you read Mark's story, you'll be like, oh, holy shit. So there is a rite of passage between like skateboarding and surfing. And when you find something out, like you don't say anything. So anyway, so Mark, that's the first article or that there were others, but physically that that I worked on for the magazine because after Barry's font, it had this, I had it up on this plateau, and I was like, everything else has to measure up to the feeling that I had when Barry said, okay, use this or whatever. I was like, shit, I'm like, that's amazing. Like, all right, I'm doing it, and then so every article and person had to measure up to the thought process and the delivery of this issue. So like when each one of you open it up, I hope anyway, you're going to be like, I've never ever seen this before, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. So there's some other articles in there. Like I don't really want to say too much, but like Paul Sitch's article, like I know for a fact you've never seen that before. Um, there is an article on a chef that we did, and I'm trying to think of how to explain it. I did post some of it on LinkedIn. She she's a legendary chef, and she's traveled around. She's here in Portland now, but let's see if maybe I can find it in here. Anyway, she wrote an article on why we don't need dessert. So it's awesome. Like it's really, really good. But we decided to art direct the photo shoot a little differently. Well, I'll just show you. This isn't the opening spread because there's a little something unorthodox here, but this is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that title, I spent a week and a half on. That's all hand cut, retaped, reprinted, because when I saw her article, and then when I worked with this um, uh, group of people, these two folks called Night Flare Photography, who were very close friends with Maya, they did all that photography. Like that's real. Like that's not Photoshop shit. Like that's real. So like the stakes were super, super high for me. And I even said to them, I'm like, I'm going to need some time to live with these pictures because they're like, I remember I took a stab at it, like maybe a week after I got the images from Nick. It was terrible. I did not do her story or Nick's, and Drew's photography justice at all. And I was really upset, I mean, I might as well tell you because this is part of being vulnerable. I mean, I'm not like a great designer who doesn't have shit days because most of my days are shit. And, it's just how it is. And mainly because, I'm never really too satisfied with the one thing, I mean, like I'm always trying something new because I'm like Barry was saying, like I'm looking for these little treasures. I'm like, oh my God, this moment is fucking like, this is amazing. Like, okay, I'm not touching it. And the title that I showed you, it was like that. I wanted that message and those letters and the design of that to come through and support that photography and her story. Which I got to wait a minute. I want to show you. There might be a little bit of a insight in here. Hold on. So that took a minute. That took a minute. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so Barry, there's your font. So everybody out there, that gentleman sitting next to Christian, that is his font. So I actually played with the weights and the kerning and a little bit, but I but by the way, I left. You have a really incredible kerning to that font, and I tried to play with it, but I couldn't live with it. So I left it just as you gave it to me. Those letters are very close together.
Yes.
And I was like, holy shit, there's a relationship here, and I am not fucking with this thing. Like, I am leaving it just like
But
here
you
we
knew
go
there
with the
were
natural, huh?
inconsistencies in it, right? You saw, you found the inconsistencies, I'm sure.
I did. I loved, dude. It was amazing. I, I was just, I actually almost, texted and emailed you a couple of things. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, I was a little embarrassed because I'm like, uh-oh, is he going to think that I'm questioning him? Or, but
I told you that when
I
I
know
sent it, it's like it's riddled with kerning errors
you did.
because how do you kern a typeface like that? It's so close together,
You don't.
and especially when it's a labor of love and you're not getting paid for it. How do you sit and kern that? That nobody likes kerning.
No. Right. Right. They're going to fuck with it anyway. So it's like, here you go.
And so I said, call me if I'll just fix it.
I don't want you touching it. No, no. So for the audience out there, I want you to understand my gratitude and my appreciation for Barry, because when you see the magazine, the success or the impact, all these great words that I really can't come up with, are because of what he did. They're because of him thinking, oh, like it should be this way. Um, and so there's this nuance there, right? Of like, you know, Barry allowing me and kind of blessing me with the font, which we go way back, and so it was really great just to have to ignite that relationship again and see the fire was still going. But I want you all to know that I didn't just take it and throw it around. Every time I use this thing, I think of him, and I think of how significant it is to be able to have this in the magazine, because it contributes to the impact. Like, it's another musician in the symphony. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, if you take anything away, there's an accountability for a designer when you're, say, such as myself, when I'm doing a magazine and I'm getting pulled by all these other things, but I want to make sure that I'm using the gift that he gave me appropriately. So it's really cool that you're seeing the two of us here, that helps make an impact on these pages, and it's a really cool thing. And I think the other thing I'll say about that is that's the mentality. You know what I mean? It's almost like, going over to your family's Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. And, there's this accountability there. There's a blessing, there's a food. You see relatives, you see this and that. And you don't just show up all filthy and sit your ass down and start diving into food. Like, there's a protocol. You know what I mean? Like, you at least I believe anyway. And then, you give thanks, and maybe you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, and you're like, oh, and you're, checking them out. And then, like, when you walk away, like, you're moved. Like, there's something there that like, wow, and you rethink, you know what I mean? Like, you rethink about all these things. And anyway, so that kind of stuff, that's how I felt about Barry giving me the font. And that's how I feel about my work. Like, whenever I start something, that's how I feel, every time. I mean, and the magazine is a monster reflection of that. So anyway, I've been rambling on. Does anybody want to ask me any other questions or say anything, or do we have anything out there?
Yeah, someone, let's see, I'm looking through the chat here. Um, Yeah, if anyone and everyone is welcome to unmute themselves or type anything to the chat. I did include a link to the Kickstarter in the chat here so that folks can click in and go, you know, supports. I am very proud to say that I was the first Kickstarter person.
That's right.
So Jamie Gannon, who is a good friend of the Chicago Graphic Design Club here and a good friend of mine, he put in the chat here, could we have a history lesson? How did your career intersect with any of the following? Carson, Keedy, etc. You can see the names in the chat here.
Yeah, okay. Jamie, I really appreciate that. You're really testing my memory. Just so you know, those folks that you listed should have that gentleman sitting next to Christian in there because he helped shape all that stuff too. But okay, well, how can I tell you? I'm trying to think of how to condense this. Well, so like I said, I'm a New Yorker, and when I got out of art school, I went to Santa Barbara. I've been a lifelong skateboarder, and I was a professional snowboarder from the very beginning. So I was one of those people who initially helped bring this sport together. And so when I left art school, Tom Sims, rest in peace, who I grew up with, who was a legend in skateboarding and snowboarding, I was his first and somewhat only design director. So Tom and I did all those early graphics on the Sim snowboards that are like the legendary ones, you know. And so I've always had that raw spirit inside me of skating and snowboarding and the attitude that it had and you know all this kind of stuff. So that led me to Southern California. I moved from Santa Barbara to Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, which is a mecca of skateboarding culture. So when I wasn't working, I was you know skating all the time. You know, skating pools, draining pools, trespassing. You know, doing whatever. And I wasn't doing it to like get a record. It was one of those things that I'm chasing that I still do it that I chase down because I love that moment. Like again, like what Barry was saying, like there's these treasures, right? And we all have them. It's you know, it could be whatever you guys are into. But anyway, so the intersection started in like 88, 89, and Barry, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but graphic design started taking a turn, like with the Mac, and people started experimenting and doing different things. You know, David was working, you know, just on his own course, you know, doing trans world skateboarding, and so anyway, and then from there, so that was like in maybe 87 or whatever. And so there were a handful of us that were actually doing work prior to the computer, but still paralleled the Apple, you know, when it came. And how can I explain this? So that kind of formed like that kind of had this little, you know, group of people that you would see all the time that did work that was around and you know whatever and like you know like Barry, but so I would take so when I was at Sims, I would have to do these paste up mechanicals like you see my work on Instagram, and I would take those mechanicals to sometimes the ads were due at a certain time, and so I was like 35 minutes north of Surfer Publications, Surfer Magazine, and that's after Transworld. That's where David was working, and so I knew of him. We had talked a little bit, but when I was taking my ad film, and my mechanicals down there to Surfer just to drop them off, is usually be around 5 o'clock or 5:30 because of traffic and stuff. And so I would hang out with David. And he it's not like who he was today. He had his office and stuff, and we would look at work and we would, fart around and talk about stuff. It was really, it's like right now, like what we're doing right now. So David was one of the first people that like we started this relationship of talking about how things work and blah blah blah. So that was like I think that was like in '88, and he was doing beach culture at that time too. So that was really interesting, and that's when. So at that time, and again, Barry, chime in. We were using like freehand and Quark Express to do page layout, but we weren't utilizing the computer to alter images per se. We would depend on the craftsmen, the image makers, like whomever it may be, and typographers and these experts that change the page, like Barry, who's sitting next to Christian here. So for people like myself and David, if we got a story, we would look at people like Barry, or we would look at people like Rick Valseni or whomever to contribute to the story, because sure, we were editorial designers, but not all of us were great photographers or illustrators or whatever. Or you'd call someone like Matt Mahurin or whatever. So that intersection started then in like the late '80s for me, and then I didn't have too much to do with Jeffrey, but P. Scott for sure, and then not so much Alan, but Rudy for sure a lot, because Emigre was happening, and a lot of us were on that radar, and we would subscribe to it, and I'm sure Barry was in there a lot more than I ever was, but that kind of stuff. So I think just by default, Jamie, and now keep in mind, now, like, let me balance the equation here. There was no cell phone, there was no social, there was none of that stuff. So we only heard or saw one another if we saw them in a design annual, or if Barry had.
If you traveled back then, you'd go see all the, there were certain brethren that you would try to visit
Yeah.
and meet for the
Exactly.
first time, maybe just once in your life.
Yeah. No, that's really
Yeah, we did
true.
not DM each other.
No, that's really true. So like, say for so when you did go meet somebody, right? When you left and you got back to your studio, you were doing stuff, you like, it was like heartwarming. Like you're like, oh my God, like, whoa. So the impact was amazing, as opposed to, again, to Barry's point, the the things that are being taken away by social today. Like it doesn't even like it, yeah, anyway, okay. So
We
yeah, so
just
back
need to
then,
take them back.
what?
We just need to take them back. So,
That's what we're doing. Thank you, Christian, by the way. Um, and that's what the magazine. Um, it's really by no chance that, thanks to Christian and Rick Valicenti, but Barry and I are sitting in front of you, who are the same people who are bringing you the magazine. So when you get it, I do hope you enjoy it. But anyway, so Jamie, yeah, like what I'm rambling on about is this intersection. I think our work led to one another. There might have been a phone call or something like that, and then Art Chantry always was super hyped, and we did speak. It was super rare though. He wasn't in the same circles, but I was super super pumped on his work. Being a punk guy, and especially like when grunge was making its way around, especially here. Art was huge. Like, and look at all the, I mean, talk about like real work. I mean, that guy, you're talking silkscreen stuff. So anyway, sorry, Jamie, for the long ramble, but yeah, that's so I want to throw something out too, that another thing that I'm mega, mega passionate about that contributes to some of this editorial here is that when I left Los Angeles in '90 because of the violence that was going on down there on the freeway, and I was afraid. It takes a lot to get me to be afraid, especially being a New Yorker, but I really was afraid. Because guys were coming up to you on the freeway and shooting. They're just shooting. They're shooting your car. They're shooting your time, whatever. And so, anybody who knows in Southern California, you're on the freeway all the time. Anyway, so I came up here to Oregon, and I was a co-founder of Moral Snowboards. One of the things that I'll cut to the chase really quickly was, again, no computer. And I did this at Sims too. I hand built all of the screens for those graphics for all those years at Sims and at Marl. At Sims Snowboards, I hand cut all those graphics with Rubylith. Back then, so when I went to art school, there was no graphic designer. When I signed up, I was supposedly a commercial artist. And the term graphic design didn't come till a couple of years later, to where you started playing with actual graphics, black and white, ephemera and things that actually contributed to, those kind of things. So as a graphic artist for myself, I had to be an expert darkroom technician. So when I did the graphics at Sims, I would, do, like a foot high, whatever, mock-up or whatever, and Tom and I would look at it and decide and blah, 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 whatever. And then we talked to the reps out that were all over the world, and, Sweden likes this, Virginia likes this, Vermont likes this, whatever. So once we had finalized on a graphic, I would do final art, at 100%, and a lot of it was taped up, only black. And I would go into the dark room and I would make full 100% scale negatives. And then from those negatives, I would make positives. And so I hand separated a 4-color design for the snowboards. And it took me 3 months because I had to do 11 boards. And so you want to talk about drive and persistence and digging your heels in. When I was very young, I did earn, I remember somebody called me that one time, somebody that I looked up to. They're like, "Oh, you're a graphic designer." And I was like, "Whoa," you know what I mean? And so you had to earn that title. Like today you can just walk in and to an agency and you're a junior designer or whatever, which, whatever. But back then, we had to earn that. I'm not sure how that was for you, Barry, but for me, I had to be an expert darkroom technicians because when I was because I also worked on, Vision Streetwear and MTV and whatever. So if we were going to do any kind of graphics whatsoever, I had to produce the film for it. So I just wanted to let the public know out there that, like, I just don't move shit around on the paper. Like, there's rhyme and reason for doing this because of the school that I was brought up on. Like, if you were going to use a piece of graphic arts film, because it was so expensive, you had to know what you were doing. So the accountability for everything I did when I was young and even now is super, super high. So I couldn't just like you can, anyway, I'll reserve that. But anyway, so I just wanted you guys to know where I came from. So when I do graphics, for lack of a better word or whatever it is, they come from that foundational thought process. So I apologize out there. I've been rambling on, but like I got going because Christian's lighting fires.
Well, we're at time, but I just want to once again thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us. And I know I mentioned to you that at some point it'd be cool to have you come out to Chicago because I've been noticing some of the stuff that you've been posting on your Instagram in regards to some of the workshops, and I think it would be such a privilege to have you come and sort of walk us through a more tangible practice, and I think there's a lot we can learn from you. So
Well, I'm a little flushed now, Barry. You can't see my. I got some heat. I got some heat going here. No, I mean, all kidding aside, but I thank you, Christian. I really appreciate that. If Barry's coming and you're going to be there, then let's do it.
Yeah,
I,
Right on.
you know, I think it would be great. I did a large one. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but I to 230 people at Nike, and the biggest thing I got out of that was these folks came up to me and basically said, I've never been able to see visual stories like this before. And I was just like blown away because it's not about me. I don't want it to be about me. I want people to be able to uncover something they've been wanting to see and see their own stories or their own visuals or their own imagery a certain way. So I would love to come out, Christian. It'd be amazing.
okay. Well, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, I love it.
We'll find a way.
And thank you, Chris, really for asking me. And Barry, thank you for your time tonight. Like I said, I'm honored from both of you. I mean, it's great. It's great.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So, everyone, go get your copy. I'm putting the link in the chat here again. And you've been posting some like really cool process videos, and I think the one thing that we didn't cover is the promo, like all the promo that you've been doing for the publication. And I know that that's a whole project in itself is doing that. And I don't know if you feel this way, but to me, that's always the least favorite part of designers.
I know we were talking about that. Well, I mean, here's not to belabor this thing, but I used to think like, oh, the work will speak for itself. Like
Yeah.
everybody will know, or whatever. You know what? They don't. Like
Mhm.
nobody knows. And like Barry said, because our information system is so flawed, because I can put hours and hours into something and it can miss 4,000 people because it's not in their feed, or who knows what the reason is. So it just doesn't work. So the magazine, the larger, seems like undertaking, has been trying to get people to see. Here we go again. You know what I mean? And that's fine too. I'm learning from that, and I've had hundreds of discussions about it. But anyway, I mean, Christian, I can't thank you enough. I feel like you and I are getting to be old souls again, and it's been really great. So without people like you and Barry, these conversations are going to get lost. And whomever joined tonight, I thank you very much for your time and patience and me rambling on about crazy things. But keep in mind too that these two gentlemen here in front of me are major players, and I feel like all of us coming together to have a discussion, no matter what it is, I think can help change things and maybe add more life to what you're doing too.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thank you to everyone that joined us, and thank you to Barry for sitting next to
yes,
me.
Thank you.
definitely thank you. No, and yeah, I appreciate that, Christian, very much, and for the effort, my friend. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I really thank you.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, see you later, and have a good night.
All right, you
Talk
guys.
soon.
Thanks again. Okay,
Bye.
take care. Bye bye.